do that again. Here we go. Can I welcome members and officers here at City Hall and the public here in the gallery or watching on the webcast to today's meeting of the GLA Oversight Committee. Please may I remind participants to turn off phones or put them on silent, and can I also ask members to ensure that any electronic devices are not placed in front of their microphones. Can I ask our clerk to confirm any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. We've had apologies today for in-person attendance from the Chair of the Committee, Assembly Member Leonie Cooper, but she is joining the meeting remotely. And we also have Assembly Member Fortune, who's also joining the meeting remotely.
Thank you, Davina. Can we note the list of offices held by Assembly members? And can I also ask members if they have any disclosable pecuniary interests in specific items listed on the agenda? Noted, thank you. Can I ask the committee to note the membership and chairing arrangements for the committee as agreed by the London Assembly at its annual meeting on the 9th of May 2022 and as set out on the agenda? Thank you. Can I ask the committee to note the terms of reference as agreed by the London Assembly at its annual meeting on 14th of May 2021 as set out on the agenda, and the delegations to the chair of the GLA Oversight Committee as set out on the agenda? Thank you. Appendix 1 to this item has been tabled and published on the GLA website. Can I ask the committee to agree to re-establish the Standing Orders Working Group for the 2022-23 year with the terms of reference, size and membership as set out in the tabled paper, and agree that the working group appoint a chair at their first meeting? Thank you. And can we agree to re-establish the Chief Officer Performance Review Panel for the 2022-23 year with the terms of reference, size and membership as set out in the table paper, and agree to the working group appoint a chair at their first meeting? Thank you. Can we confirm the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 23rd of March 2022 to be signed by myself as Deputy Chair as a correct record? Thank you. Can we note the completed and ongoing actions arising from previous meetings of the GLA Oversight Committee and additional correspondence received? Thank you. Can I firstly remind members of the memo circulated to the committee advising of a correction to recommendation 2.1e and paragraph 4.1 of this report, namely to reference a 2% pay award for staff at grade 13 and upwards as opposed to grade 12. Now, can we note the recent action taken by the former chair under delegated authority, namely to agree and note in consultation with the deputy chairman and party group lead members the following: a letter to the mayor regarding his mayoral advisors, the anticipated headline funding position for 22-23 to 24-25 as set out in the reports in items 9 and 11A of the agenda for the 23rd of March 2022 meeting of the GLA Oversight Committee, the proposed allocation of the Assembly and Secretariat budget for 22-23 as set out in the report at item 9 of the agenda of the GLA Oversight Committee's meeting of the 23rd of March 2022, and as amended by the proposal set out at option C of agenda item 11A, noting further comments. The general use of the Assembly's budget in the 2022-23 year as allocated to the relevant teams within the Secretariat in accordance with the proposals set out in the report at item 9 of the agenda for the 23rd of March 2022 meeting of the GLA Oversight Committee, and as corrected. The 2022-23 pay award of the 3.2% for GLA staff on grades 1 to 2 and 2% for the GLA staff at grade 13 and upwards. I would like to, so can we, that's recommended, so can you note, colleagues, thank you. I would now also like to propose that we take agenda item 10 as the first next item of business and return to agenda 9 following item 11. Right, it's nearly time for somebody else to say something, thank goodness. Right. We're on to section 10 now. Can I first Can I firstly remind members of the memo circulated to the committee advising of an update to the table at paragraph 6.3 of this report, namely the revised staff consultation headlines. Now, I don't know, Mary, did you want to say something about this paper?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I just wanted to just briefly say a couple of words about this and the next paper. As you can see, this one first coming is a proposed restructure of our HR and organisational development team, and the second one is the proposed restructure of the finance team. And we are working as a corporate management team to refresh those two core services that, of course, serve the entire organisation. And step back from where we are with both of those services and take a look at, are they indeed reflecting best practice now in the professions of HR and finance, and what do we need to do in both teams to make sure that those services continue to serve the GLA in what, of course, is changed and ongoing challenging times. So then Shakira, of course, will now talk to the HR one, and then David in due course to the finance one. But again, members will have seen there's sort of some resonance between those two papers as we strive to achieve the same thing, really, for both of these services.
Okay, well, we'll take questions on item 10 first. Assembly Member Pigeon.
Thank you. One of the issues within HR at the GLA is it's seen as slow and cumbersome, shall we say, particularly around the issue of recruitment for new staff, and you'll have heard this many, many times before. I suppose it wasn't listed as a priority for the new people strategy and HR plan, and it doesn't seem to be any recognition that there have been delays in the recruitment process and steps to improve it. So will you ensure that this is a priority for the team and the new post, Director of People?
Can I ask Shakira to answer that in the first instance?
Is that on? Yes. Hello, everybody. So yes, absolutely, it is a priority, but this comes in tandem with the shared services function equally. So a lot of the transactional recruitment will be into that space of the shared service function, where actually it will be a lot quicker and a lot easier to use, and actually a lot of the transactional, what I would call in HR terms, transactional recruitment, will be sat in that space. What we sat in the new function is strategic resourcing, which is about looking more so about pipeline, so that actually we don't have to put out every single role if we've grown talent within, and if we've supported and nurtured kind of apprenticeships and all those sorts of things, so that actually it should be quicker to be able to put people into post from within than always putting roles out and going through external recruitment, which the shared service function picks up. So absolutely it's priority, but equally it's picked up as part of the HR shared services function.
But the director role surely will be performance managing the shared service arrangements, so actually having it as a priority for when we need to go out, it is surely going to be up there.
Correct, and also as part of the new function, there will be a client relationship piece in there that kind of manages the service, the standards, and all the things that we do require absolutely as part of the transactional service. It is a key feature in the new function.
Okay, I'll ask a question. I know there's going to be an easy answer to this that I should have sussed, but I didn't. The GLA Jobs website has currently got, or it lists 2 senior HR posts, a deputy to the assistant director, and that's at over 81k, and a senior reward specialist at over 72,000. Now, neither post appears to feature on either of the lists of posts to be abolished within this paper or the list of posts to be established within this paper. So can you just clarify what that's about, as it's quite heavily paid roles?
Yeah. So the 2 posts are going to be transitional posts, because at the moment we need some support around changing from one model to another, hence why the deputy role is there currently. And equally, as we know, we are going through the pay and grading review, so therefore we need some specialism. Currently, there is zero specialism in the function to support this work. So it is absolutely required in order to continue on that work and push through and get an outcome on that work, which is absolutely required. They do feature in the new structure, but at the moment, what is required right now is some transitional posts that will help us get from A to B.
I just didn't know why they weren't put in there specifically, or perhaps they were.
They are.
They are actually. They actually feature on the. Do they?
So within.
Because I know on paper 9, it contains long lists of fixed-term roles that are being created, many of which run to the same point.
Yep.
So I just wondered whether there was why there was inconsistency between paper 9 and this paper.
So there's a slight difference in terms of the language. So the grade 13's heads of HR are listed as posts to be created, and then we've got the reward manager, which is a grade 12, which is listed as a new role to be created.
Have they been listed under those names that they're being advertised for?
Slightly different, but again,
But why?
Mainly for the reason that I need to attract those individuals now, but they're temporary roles and they aren't permanent roles for the new structure, but they're just temporary currently.
Okay. I don't understand why there isn't that. You can't look at it and it can equate to another list somewhere, whereas you can on 9. I don't understand why you're treating this differently to jobs that are on paper 9.
I think probably Assembly Member Hall, the jobs that are in paper 9 are absolutely linked to the budget, the approved Mayor's budget for this year. And it does talk about some extension of some of the recruitment roles that we've got at the moment, whereas this paper is about an absolute sort of look forward, which we talk in the budget about wanting to do some transformation work for HR, but we don't get into any detail because Shakira arrived at the end of February and has been working on that since. I think it is a bit confusing that, as you say, the 2 roles that are being advertised at the moment aren't exactly the same titles as 2 of the roles being created. They are very similar, but we haven't yet consulted on these on this structure, which we need to do, and then formally create these posts. So we've created these 2 temporary posts, as Shakira has said, to get people in much sooner than we would do by waiting for the structure to finish. So I agree. It's not entirely helpful that they're called slightly different things, but these people are being recruited on a temporary basis. We may find people who are then interested in applying for these permanent roles, but we're treating them as different roles at the moment.
Yeah, it's neither helpful nor transparent, and it's better if you can marry these things up as and when you can. How many extra people do you think there will be?
So, in addition to, basically recasting the whole function, there is additional posts. In total, though, it will be from, as I said, I think in the paper, I'm just trying to find it.
Is this your paper? It is your paper.
It is my paper, yeah. So the increase of the current head count will be 34.6, and it's going to 37 FTE. So it's kind of recasting the current structure and then adding on some additional roles within that structure to get up to the 37 FTE.
And where are they going to have their desks or share their desks?
So they'll be still working in a hybrid model. So both people will be based within this building, where HR is anchored, but equally across the estate of Union Street as well as here.
Because from what I'm being told, there's just that people are having problems booking desks here. Is that correct?
Within my team, there hasn't been that issue. Within HR, we have been operating between the 2 buildings.
So here and Union Street?
Yeah.
Okay. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? No? Okay. The committee is asked to respond to the Chief Officer's consultation on proposed changes to the GLA establishment regarding the Human Resources, HR and Organisational Development OD function operating as part of the Chief Officer's Directorate. Okay. We'll go on now to section 11. I don't know, Mary, do you want to say something brief on this?
No, I didn't have any more to say other than what I've said already to launch these two papers. But David Galley will answer questions.
Okay, colleagues, questions on the next item? Right, I'll 4.9 of the report says that the new structure will be accompanied by a renewed focus on professional standards. So are you saying that professional standards have not been adhered to or worked on recently?
No, Assemblymember Hall. The issue is that at the present we have a number of the staff in the management accounting function who are not qualified. And one of the key principles that we are introducing here is that essentially all staff either need to be qualified or seeking to be qualified. So we are deliberately looking to up the professional standards of existing staff and recruiting into the roles that are genuinely discharged by professional people. So one of the problems we've had is that there have been over a number of years staff in roles who had not been professionally qualified.
How many?
In the tier of the present senior accountants, which we are looking to effectively move into the business partner role as the paper describes. There's certainly currently 2 members of staff there who are not currently fully qualified.
Out of how many?
Out of the senior accountants of 6.
Good Lord.
I mean, this is one of the sort of historic legacies that in the whole reform programme, across finance, across HR, across TG, we're looking to, up our standards.
And how long has that been going on for?
I mean, since I've been here, those 2 members of staff have been present, so it's been a legacy issue.
Well, you've been in charge for quite some time. Have you not sought to think about dealing with that before?
It's certainly been an issue that has preoccupied me for a long period of time. I mean, one of the reasons, obviously, for the delay in the introduction of the whole reform of support services has been the impact of COVID. It's only really, I think, since our return to a more normal set of situations that we've actually had an ability time to actually get into these necessary reforms.
4.10 says that in order to attain professional standard, it's necessary to ensure continuing professional development at an extra $25,000 per year for training, and that is proposed. How much has currently been in this budget for staff training in the area?
And this is a completely new budget. Training has effectively been funded on the hoof, if you like, previously in terms of people who have been studying for qualifications, and one of the key steps here is to create a holistic approach so we can take a whole view of not just those staff who are currently taking exams, but also those who are coming in new and ensuring that they can have a resource to ensure a proper training programme. We need to take stock of, that provision is almost certainly not sufficient for all staff, but there's clearly a whole need for us to look across the whole of the finance team at best to deploy that resource.
Okay, and is this face-to-face training or is it online training?
It'll be a mix of that. I mean, people who are doing their professional qualifications will be a mix of kind of day release, online work, but also we're keen to ensure that those staff that are qualified or where the posts actually don't require a qualification, that again people are still looking for relevant professional CPD within their work.
So it's only a a team 6 people and 2 people aren't qualified.
No. Of the senior tier at the moment, that's the case. Obviously, the function is bigger and wider than that.
Well, I thought so. So beneath that, how many people are not qualified?
I mean, the bulk of those staff, I haven't got the figures in front of me, but there's probably a couple of staff who've recently qualified who are below that level, who obviously this restructure gives them an opportunity to go for the roles at a higher level.
But that doesn't answer the question, how many people?
I haven't got the detail in front of
write
me.
to the
I'll
committee
happily supply
and
that detail
tell us
to you.
exactly how many people you've got working in your department, exactly how many of them are actually qualified, and how many of them will need to be qualified. If we could have that pretty quickly soon, because you say it's historic, but you've been around. How many years have you been here?
Well, I've been the executive director responsible for the whole of the finance function, for just over 2 years. Clearly, I was here before in a different role.
I know, but nevertheless, senior. Okay. Any other questions from colleagues? No. Okay. The committee is asked to respond to the Chief Officer's consultation on proposed changes to the GLA establishment regarding the management accounting function operating as part of the Resources Directorate. We're now coming to 9, but I believe we moved 9 in order to get another member of staff here, but they're not.
Yes, if we weren't sure how many questions of detail members would have on paper 9, so Phil Graham is on his way over from Union Street where he's been interviewing. But perhaps, Chairman, we could do paper 11 because we have Tunde here for that. But if members haven't got many questions on the detail of 9, we may not need Phil.
Do you mean 12? Because we've already done 11.
I mean 12. Yeah.
Let's crack on with 12 then, shall we? And just see. Does anybody? Do you want a report, colleagues? Do you want to say something very briefly, Tunde?
I'll just give a very brief summary. More money's coming in from central government to run adult education programmes, boot camps and Multiply in particular. This is responding to the greater demand and is resource that we need in order to continue to deliver the programme.
Okay. How much money are you receiving, or are we receiving from central government?
For boot camps, it's 18.9 million, and for Multiply, it's 40.9, and that's for a 3-year period.
40.9 million from the government.
Yes.
Okay. Have any of my colleagues got any questions? No. Well, the committee is asked to respond to the Chief Officer's consultation on proposed changes to the Skills and Employment Unit. We'll go back to 9. I do believe my colleague Caroline Pidgeon has got questions on 9.
I do. I'm sure the Chief Officer will be able to answer them. Since you started as Chief Officer, you have said as far as possible you want to move away from an over-reliance on fixed-term posts, preferring permanent posts. So why in this paper do we see 30 full-time equivalent fixed-term posts compared to 22 permanent posts?
Thank you, Assembly Member Pidgeon. I think because that is what is needed coming out of the budget and the programme of activity. So you're right. I was quite shocked by the level of fixed-term posts we had in the organisation when I joined, and went on a campaign supported by the Oversight Committee to get those down to what feels like much more reasonable levels, and we're running at about 15% now. That doesn't, though, mean we never create new fixed-term posts, but what we do is make it absolutely clear that if we're doing that, it's right to be doing that. It's normally linked to funding, of course. Many of them are externally funded, but not all. So we're trying to get that balance right the whole time. I agree with you, it does appear to be skewed, this paper, but I just think that's a feature of what we're looking to fund and do in this particular year. And, as we've just heard from Tunde, we are getting enormous amounts of funding in from government and other sources, but generally those do fund fixed-term posts.
Yeah. Okay, but you've assured yourself, as these teams are coming up with proposals and funding, you as Chief Officer assuring yourself that this is the right proportion of fixed-term posts rather than permanent?
I definitely assure myself, and people will testify to this, because I do it personally, that where we are creating a fixed-term post, it is right to do so.
Okay, that's helpful. So there is a sort of check in the
Exactly.
process. And I... obviously, a lot of these posts are externally funded. This sort of age-old question of ours, can you confirm that all associated costs to the GLA for these fixed-term posts are covered externally? And that would include everything from IT to desk space to pensions to whatever redundancy costs and so on.
I can confirm that.
Perfect. There you go. So, didn't need Phil to be here.
You, Phil.
Okay. Can I ask how many additional members of staff in total that will be?
Paper. So we're talking about here 22.6 FTE permanent and 30 FTE fixed term.
And where are you going to put them, Mary?
We are going to locate them across City Hall and Union Street. Actually, I mean, what I haven't done is look at which teams these are, but we can look at it now. So most of these roles are in communities and skills, anchored at Union Street. Good growth, anchored at Union Street. Housing and land, anchored here. That's part of Simon's team. Resources, strategy and comms, anchored across the two sites. So of these, the majority are going to be anchored at Union Street rather than City Hall.
How many desks actually have we got here total now? Because I know it was queried several times as to how many people we could get in here, and every time I asked.
Yeah, we have 586 desks across our two locations, City Hall and Union Street.
No,
I think the number here is 225.
225.
Yes, I will just need to, but it's definitely around that.
And are you
out of the
having any
586.
problems with any of the teams unable to get a desk?
So far, I haven't had any problems reported to me. I mean, we do know that all of this is predicated on people being in one or other of our buildings 3 days a week. And the numbers that we have, the 586 across the two sites, represent 63% of what we used to have in City Hall and Union Street. So 2/3 of what we had, with people expected to be in 2 to 3 days a week. So, you know, the maths absolutely works. And I've always been confident about that. The question then is who chooses to come in when. And I've said this to the committee before, if everyone chooses to come in on Wednesday afternoons, then there won't be a desk for everybody. But we are working hard as a set of executive directors and with our assistant directors to manage the use of our buildings across the week. And I really think you can now see that coming through. You know, I've always said we'll keep a really, really close eye on it. We're monitoring attendance. You know, we've got the desk signposting system that we had just before we went into lockdown. That's all been resurrected here and in Union Street. And, you know, if teams have problems, we've said we will look to review how we work. I mean, I think it is probably true that these next 6 weeks, or, you know, this sort of term of assembly business and mayor business is going to be the test of that, because as we can see, you know, this place is coming alive, and Union Street is busy as well. So I think these next 6 weeks are going to really test whether or not we've got this balance right and whether we need to make any changes.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're still on 9 now too. The committee is asked to respond to the Chief Officer's consultation on the proposed changes to the GLA establishment arising from the GLA Mayor Budget 2022-23. So we're now going on to section 13, People's Question Time. I don't really think we want to report unless anybody does. Assembly Member Pigeon, do you want to ask any questions?
Yes, I did, because obviously great to have this report, but when you last came to Oversight, we were expecting a more detailed piece of work with different options for how people's question time could be structured in the future and other things like the State of London debate, and I was expecting that paper today, and I'm wondering where you are with that work, because I've certainly not had any discussions with you or other officers on it.
Thank you. Apologies, I should have been clearer on timeframes. We are doing that piece of work, and we'll come and talk to you about that and any other members who are particularly interested. It's been slightly delayed, unfortunately, by a number of staffing issues that we've experienced in terms of some long-term sickness within the events team, but also it's been quite a busy couple of months in terms of delivering events as well. So we haven't at this time been able to progress that, but we'll do so over the summer and come back to you on that as soon as we can.
Okay. Right, okay, colleagues. Can we note and provide views on the proposals for the People's Question Time at Redbridge Town Hall in the London Borough of Redbridge on Wednesday the 2nd of November 2022? Can we note and provide views on the updated recommended boroughs to hold People's Question Time events during this mayoral and London Assembly term? And can we provide any views, ideas or suggestions on further ways to improve People's Question Time as a consultative event? Okay, number 14, it's a quarterly monitoring report. Has anybody got any comments? No. Can we note the Corps Secretariat quarterly review for the fourth quarter of 2021-22, February to April 2022? Thank you. Can we note the committee's work programme and meeting dates as agreed at the annual meeting of the Assembly on the 9th of May 2022 and as set out in paragraph 4.14 of the report? Thank you. The next meeting of the committee is scheduled to take place on Thursday, the 16th of June at 2 p.m. in the chamber of City Hall. I have not been told of any other business, so I end the meeting. Thank you.